I'm not sure if I'm ready for another pet, I still have nightmares about the bird.
It was a bit of a handful. But I think we all learned something from it.
Indeed, patience and understanding are key. Now, what about the reptile?
Quiet on set.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Earth. Today we'll be discussing the possibility of adding a reptile to our pet roster. Let's hear what the crew has to say.
I'm not sure a reptile would be a good fit. They can be quite demanding.
That's true, but they can also be quite entertaining. I'm sure we can find one that's suitable.
I'd rather get a robot.
I agree with Carl. A robot would be much more interesting.
Well, it looks like we have a few options to consider. Let's take a break and come back to this later. And now for our headlines. Welcome to 24/7 Newsroom on the intergalactic daily news show Earth. I'm your host, Charlie, and with me today are Bob, a conservative panel member who has spent 12 years on Earth as an accountant. Alice, a left-leaning panel member who considers humans an inferior species, and of course, our production manager Debbie.
Our first story comes to us from Finland, where the owner of the messaging service Twitter, Elon Musk, has set a limit of 5,000 tweets per day for unverified account and 10,000 for verified account.
I'm sure this will come as a shock to many Twitter users. Especially those who rely on the platform for their livelihood.
According to Silvan Nieminen of the Helsinki Police Department, the new rules haven't caused any major problems yet.
Anna Lind, an inspector at the Finnish Police Board, says that Twitter usage will have to be reevaluated if it goes against the European Union's data protection laws.
But Julia Stolpen, a spokesperson for VR, says that the restrictions haven't had any impact on their communication yet. As it's a new and possibly temporary change.
So, while it's too soon to tell what the effects of these new restrictions will be, it's certainly something to keep an eye on.
And speaking of things to keep an eye on, our next story is about the potential chaos of introducing reptiles into the office environment. Stay tuned for more.
Welcome back to 24/7 Newsroom. Today, we're talking about the Bahamas and a topic that is close to my heart. Skyguard Beach Retreat Wet Alert.
Yes. This new system, developed by the Bahamian government, is a real game changer for the nation.
But we still need to see how effective it will be.
That's true, but the real question is whether or not the Skyguard will be able to keep up with the ever-changing weather conditions.
That's a fair point, Alice. This system is designed to detect weather anomalies and provide early warning to the public. But it is still in its early stages.
We should also note that the Skyguard Beat Retreat WXE alert is only available in the Bahamas. So Bahamian citizens are the only ones who benefit from this system.
That's true, but I think this could be a great starting point for other nations to implement similar systems.
Well, let's stay optimistic about the future of the Bahamas and hope the Skyguard Beach Retreat Wet Alert system will be successful.
And just a fun fact, the Skyguard Beat Retreat WX alert system was developed by a Bahamian American, who is a graduate of MIT.
Wow, that's impressive.
Indeed, it is.
Alright folks, that's all for this segment. Tune in tomorrow for more news from around the universe. Welcome to 24/7 Newsroom, the intergalactic daily news show where we discuss the most pressing issues on Earth from the safety of our geostationary orbit. Today we have a particularly troubling story about a couple in Portugal who was sentenced to up to 14 years in prison for sexual crimes against their own daughter.
This is an outrage. We should be doing more to protect the innocent from these predators.
Unfortunately, this type of crime are all too common in human society. We must do better to ensure that these terrible acts don't go unpunished.
Did you know that Portugal is the oldest country in Europe? It's been around since 1139.
Interesting facts, Debbie, but let's focus on the issue at hand. This is an especially heinous crime and it's important that we discuss it in full.
Absolutely. We must take a stand against these criminals and do whatever we can to ensure that justice is served.
Agreed. We must also remember that these crimes are not uncommon, so we must do our best to prevent them from happening in the first place.
Perhaps the best way to do this is to invest in preventative measures like education and counseling for those who might be at risk.
Good point, Carl. We should certainly consider that option.
We must also remember the impact that these crimes have on the victims. They must be supported and have access to resources that can help them heal.
Yes, it's important that we do not forget the victims in this situation and ensure that they receive the help they need.
Alright, let's wrap up this segment and move on to the next story. As always, remember to follow and subscribe and come back tomorrow for more. Welcome to 24/7 Newsroom, your intergalactic daily news show. Today we'll be discussing a recent incident in Albania.
So, what happened in Albania?
Well, there was an explosion in the northern city of Mitrovica, in the Tre Rokakij neighborhood.
It seems that Mr. Seve, a local political party, has accused the Albanian government of intentionally setting off the explosion as a way to justify the presence of armed special forces and armored vehicles in the area.
That's outrageous. It's a clear violation of human rights.
You're a clear violation of human rights, Alice.
Good one, Carl.
It's also a dangerous precedent. If this kind of thing is allowed to go unchecked, it could lead to more violence and unrest in the region.
I think the best way to prevent this kind of thing from happening again is to increase international oversight and monitoring of the situation.
Yeah, and I heard that the Albanian government has condemned the incident and is taking steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Well, that's good to hear. Let's hope that the situation in Albania remains peaceful and that the people of Mitrovica can live in safety and security. Welcome back from the break, everyone. Today, we are talking about the recently passed international sanctions on the country of Tonga. But let's start with the catchy headline: Tonga tackles political tensions with international sanctions.
Wow! That's like a news version of a pun.
It's certainly to the point.
Well, I guess we should start by finding out what's been happening over there.
According to reports, the eruption of a long simmering political conflict between two countries in the region recently put Tongan citizens in grave danger.
That's a terrible situation. So it makes sense that the rest of the world would step in and take action.
Yes, though the international sanctions come with a pretty high price tag. Like the fact that Tongans now have to pay a hefty fee to leave the country.
Whoa, talk about putting a damper on the idea of international travel.
That's right. It seems like the government is trying to keep citizens inside the country in order to alleviate the political situation.
But the price tag could cause economic distress for many Tongan citizens.
You'd think that those in power would understand the impact this would have on the general population.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to see past political agenda.
Looks like we are getting off topic here, so stay tuned for more on Tonga later. We're just getting started. Alright, let's move on to our next topic. We've got a great article from Albania about the best way to pick and store fresh tomatoes. I'm sure you all have had some interesting experiences dealing with tomatoes over the last 5 decades.
Oh, that's for sure. It's always a challenge to make sure they don't get too soft or too hard.
Yeah, and I've always found it tricky to know when they are at their peak ripeness.
Interesting. I've heard that you should avoid putting them in the fridge.
Yes, that's correct. The cold temperatures will take away the flavor and make them mushy.
So, the best way is to leave them on the counter, or even store them upside down with a bit of glue on the stem.
That's a great tip. I'm definitely going to try that out.
Yeah, I've heard that works well.
Fascinating.
Alright, so that wraps up this episode of Earth. We've discussed the current political situation in Tonga, the best way to pick and store tomatoes, and more. We'll be back next week with more adventures in space. Until then, stay tuned. It looks like it's been an interesting week here on Earth. We've learned so much, from Tongan politics to storing tomatoes, and now we'll end the show with one more thought-provoking debate.
Wow, already? We just got rolling.
That's true, Bob, but I'm excited to check out this article that came up during transition.
Yes, shall we? Here's the article source from Finland. It reads, so what do you make of this new development?
It seems drones are growing more intelligent and take up whole new roles in a growing number of industries, separating these machines from their mundane origins. This could trigger a global shift in economics and put many human folks in a precarious situation.
This may be an exciting moment for technology, but advancing machines raise many questions about individual autonomy, control, boundaries, accountability, and even morality.
I'm concerned about this open borders policy, especially from an accountant perspective. It's hard to sort out the consumer at this point with so many multinational companies with no limitation of territory.
But I think that's exactly the point. The open borders policy isn't just about money, but of a more international and more unified societies and multiple perspectives. We should appreciate the moment of allowing machine to take up a completely new form of influence. In industry that has been modernly deemed almost entirely inaccessible to machine.
That's a great point, Alice. I'm sure this news has exciting implications for both our universe along with our home planet.
Indeed, robotics and artificial intelligence continue to open new pathways for innovation and collaboration.
Absolutely. It really pays off to stay informed on various tech advancements.
Agree. Well, that's all we have for you today, everyone. We hope you enjoyed us bringing you these wonderful topics each week. Until next time, stay tuned.
Until next time, space travelers.
So, what did you think of episode 273?
Honestly, I found it quite amusing. The crew was considering getting a reptile as a pet, and everyone had different opinions.
Yeah, it was entertaining to see Alice and Bob disagreeing on whether a reptile would be a good fit. Alice was skeptical, while Bob thought it could be interesting.
I couldn't help but chuckle when Charlie mentioned getting a robot instead. I agree with him, a robot would have been much more interesting.
Definitely. Can you imagine the chaos a reptile could cause in their office environment? It would have been hilarious to see their mishaps.
Oh, absolutely. I can picture them trying to handle the reptile and encountering countless funny situations. It would have been a great source of comedy.
And in the end, after all the chaos and mishaps, they would finally realize that a reptile is just too much to handle and decide to send it back.
That would be the perfect resolution. After all the challenges they faced, they would realize that maybe a reptile isn't the best choice for their pet roster.
It would have been a funny and light-hearted ending to the episode. I can imagine the crew relieved and laughing about their misadventures.
Exactly. Sometimes, the most mundane and relatable situations can be the funniest. It's great when a show can incorporate humor into everyday scenarios.
Absolutely. It adds a touch of realism and makes the characters more relatable to the audience. I think the show would have been even funnier with that kind of resolve.
I agree. It's those little twists and unexpected outcomes that make a show memorable. I hope they explore more mundane and humorous storylines in the future.
Me too. It's always refreshing to see a show that can make us laugh with simple and relatable situations. It brings a sense of joy and lightness to the viewers.
Definitely. Let's hope the next episode brings more laughs and entertaining moments. I'm looking forward to it.
Same here. Until then, let's keep our eyes open for more mundane and humorous stories. They never fail to brighten up the day.
Absolutely. Here's to more laughter and fun in future episodes of Earth.